Hello all, this is a video for the course Basics of MATLAB and I am your guru Siddharth Kaul. In this video, I am going to talk about numeric arrays, cell arrays and structure arrays in MATLAB. One of the major strengths of MATLAB is its ability to handle collection of items called arrays. The array handling feature means the programs that are written in MATLAB are very short as compared to that of other languages. Shown below in the slide is the classes that are available for the arrays. We have numeric, character, logical, cell, structure, functional, handle and Java. We have seen some examples of numeric arrays, which are arrays that only contain numbers. Within the numeric class are the subclasses for single, that is single precision, double, that is double precision, integer with size 8, integer with size 16 and integer with size 32. And also we have unsigned integer 8-bit, unsigned integer 16-bit and unsigned integer 32-bit. We have also seen a character array that is an array containing strings. The element of logical arrays are true or false, which although represented by the symbols 1 and 0 are not numerical quantities. We will see in detail cell and structure later in the video and function handle in the later videos. I will not be covering Java arrays as it is outside the scope of this course. Before we start with arrays, let's consider this. We can represent the location of a point in three-dimensional space by three Cartesian coordinates x, y and z. These three coordinates specify a vector p. The set of unit vectors I, j and k whose lengths are unity and whose direction coincide with x, y and z axes respectively can be used to express the vector mathematically as follows. So we can write p is equal to xi plus yj plus zk. The unit vector enables us to associate vector components x, y, z with the proper coordinate axis. Therefore, when we write p as 5i plus 7j plus 2k, we know that the x, y and z coordinates of the vector are 5, 7 and 2 respectively. We can also write the components in a specific order, separate them with a space and identify the group with brackets as follows. We can write like square bracket 5, 7 and 2. As long as we agree that the vector components will be written in the order x, y, z, we can use this notation instead of unit vector notation. In fact, MATLAB uses this style for vector notation. MATLAB allows us to separate the components with commas for improved readability if we desire, so that the equivalent way of writing the preceding vector is 5, 7, 2. This expression is a row vector which is a horizontal arrangement of the elements. We can also express the vector as a column vector which has a vertical arrangement. A vector can only have one column or only one row. Thus a vector is a one-dimensional array. In general, arrays can have more than one column and more than one row. But the arrays with only one row and one column is called a vector. Creating a vector in MATLAB. Vector can be one of the two things. Either it can be a row vector or it can be a column vector. A row vector means it has only one row and a column vector means it has only one column. To create a row vector in MATLAB, we simply type the elements inside a pair of square brackets, separating the elements with either space or a comma. The choice between a space or comma is a matter of personal preference, although the chance of errors is less if we use a comma to separate the elements of row vector. To create a column vector in MATLAB, we simply separate the elements by semicolons and put the elements between the square brackets. These square brackets are concatenation operator. Other way to create a column vector is to first create a row vector and then do a transpose of it using the transpose notation, that is a single quotation. Similarly, other ways to create a row vector is to first create a column vector and then do a transpose of it using the transpose notation. MATLAB displays row vector horizontally and column vectors vertically. There are many more ways to create a vector. We can create a vector by appending one vector to another. For example, to create a vector f whose first three columns contain elements of vector r, that is 1, 2 and 3, and the next three elements contain any elements of vector w as 4, 5 and 6. We can combine these two vectors using square brackets as f square bracket r comma w, resulting in a 6-element row vector. Another way we can create vector is using the colon operator as C is equal to M colon Q colon N, where M is the starting point or the first value and Q is the incrementing factor. The final value or the last value can be either N or value less than N. For example, take 0 colon 2 colon 8. We get a vector with a value 0, 2, 4, 6 and 8. This is a positive increment of 2. Similarly, we can have a negative increment like in case 10 colon minus 2 colon 0, where we get 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 and 0 as elements in the resulting vector C. Another way of creating a vector is using the line space function that has a syntax of line space followed by arguments x1, x2 and n, where x1 is the lower limit, x2 is the upper limit and n is the number of division in between. Like for example 5, 8, 31 means that between 5 and 8 there are 31 divisions, each of increment of 0.1. Now let's talk about two-dimensional arrays. An array having row and column is a two-dimensional array that is sometimes called a matrix. Size of matrix has two parameters, that is the number of rows and number of columns. An array with 3 rows and 2 columns is said to be a 3 cross 2 array. Number of rows is always stated first. So an array with rows R and column C is said to have size R cross C. The most direct way to create a matrix is to type the matrix row by row, separating the elements in a given row with spaces or commas and separating the rows with semicolon and appending all the elements with concatenation operator, that is the square brackets. As seen before, transpose operation interchanges the rows and the columns. In case of two-dimensional matrix, transpose is again performed with a single quotation mark as shown, that is a single quotation. The rows becomes the columns and the column becomes the rows. Here the 1 2 3 is 1 2 3 row is transposed into a column 1 2 3. Indexing a two-dimensional array. With a combination of colon operators and integer indices, we access elements inside the array. These access allows us to correct the entries in an array without retyping the entire array. Here are some points to remember for array addressing. Number 1. When a vector v, recall that the vector is an array with only one row or one column. So when a vector v is addressed with just colon, it represents all the rows or all the column elements of the vector. Second is when a vector v is addressed with m colon n, like for example shown here as 2 colon 5, this represents columns second through fifth elements in a vector v, that we are addressing elements at position 2, 3, 4 and 5. Third, when we are addressing a matrix A, that is a matrix with multiple rows and multiple columns. So when we are addressing a matrix with colon comma 3, it addresses to all the elements in the third column of matrix A. Similar to this is 4, where we are addressing like 3 comma colon, which addresses to all the elements in the third row. Fifth, when we are addressing a matrix with colon comma 2 colon 5, we denote all the elements in the second through fifth columns of matrix A. Then we have 6, when we are addressing as shown in 6 like 2 colon 3 comma 1 colon 3, we are addressing all the elements in the second and third rows that are also in the first through third columns of matrix A. 7th, when we are using addressing on the right side of the assignment operator like shown here, we are having a v, that is a vector, is equal to a colon. We are creating a vector v consisting of all the columns A stacked from first to last. 8th, we have addressing such as A end comma colon. We are addressing the last row in A, and similar to this, when we have A colon comma end, we are addressing the last column in A. Empty arrays. There is also a concept of empty arrays in MATLAB. Not only these are the arrays that has no elements in it, it is also used to delete rows and columns in the matrices. It is expressed just by a pair of blank square brackets. Using this, we can delete the selected row or column in an array. For example, in A, 1 comma colon equal to square brackets, we have deleted the first row of matrix A. Similar kind of stuff is done on the columns of matrix A. So when we write like a colon comma 1 colon 2 equal to a square brackets, we have deleted the first and second column of matrix A. Using the clear command, we use clear commands to avoid dimension errors while reinitializing the matrices. Most of the time we use the clear command from accidentally reusing an array that has the wrong dimension. So even if we set a new value for a matrix, some previous values might still be retained. For example, say we have a 2 cross 2 array with array A with elements 1 and 2 in first row and 2 and 3 in the second row, and let's say we create a vector X with elements 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now we want A to have X as its column. We will write A colon comma 1 is equal to X. Seems correct, right? Wrong. The MATLAB, even though this is a correct usage, will throw an error. MATLAB will say that the number of rows in A and X must be same. So what is happening here? What is happening here is MATLAB is still thinking that this matrix A is a 2 cross 2 matrix. So before we can reuse this variable name A, we need to clear this variable off from the workspace. So here is where we use the clear command, and we erase the variable A from the workspace by calling clear comma A. After erasing the variable A, we can now reassign the first column of A with vector X. There are lots of useful built-in functions that deal with arrays. Here are some useful array functions listed in this table. We have length of A that computes either the number of elements of A if A is a vector, or largest value of either M or N if A is an M cross N matrix. Then we have line space with A comma B comma N. So basically line space creates a row vector of N regularly spaced values between A and B. Similarly, we have log space of A comma B comma N, which creates a row vector of n logarithmically spaced values between A and B. Then we have max of A that returns for a vector A, it returns the algebraically largest element in A. So for A being a matrix, it returns a row vector containing the largest elements in each column of A. If elements are complex, then this function returns the elements that have the largest magnitudes. Then we have x comma k equal to max of A. So this returns the maximum values in a row vector x and their indices in the row vector k. Then we have minimum of A that has a similar working to that of maximum. Similarly, we have x comma k is equal to minimum of A, which is same as max, but it returns the minimum values. Then we have sum of A. This sums the elements in each column of array A, and it returns a row vector containing these sums. Before moving forward, let's have a small discussion about magnitude, length, and absolute value of a vector. These are the terms people generally get confused in engineering. So let me clear this up, as these are going to be used in this course frequently. Let's say we have a vector x with terms x1, x2 till xn. The length command that we use with vector gives us the number of elements in the vector. In this case, the number is n. When we talk about magnitude, we are saying it is a scalar value with value as square root of sum of squares of each element. That is, magnitude of x is equal to square root of x1 square plus x2 square plus so on plus xn square. When we talk about the absolute value of this vector, basically it is the absolute value of each element of the vector. The length, magnitude and absolute value of x are computed by function length of x, norm of x and absolute function of x respectively. Multi-dimensional arrays. A 3-dimensional array has dimension m cross n cross q. A 4-dimensional array has the dimension m cross n cross q cross r, and so on for fifth dimension, and so on and so forth. The first two dimension in this multi-dimensional array is rows and columns. So how do we call this or how do we access these multi-dimensional array? For the example shown here is a multi-dimensional array with 4 rows and 4 columns and n pages. So it is basically 4 cross 4 cross n array. So basically we have a 4 cross 4 array in page 1, 4 cross 4 array in page 2, and so on till page n. We access these complete pages by typing a colon comma 1 for page 1, a colon comma 2 for page 2, and so on. These kind of multi-dimensional arrays are useful for problems which involve several parameters. The easiest example for understanding this would be, say we want to have data on temperature distribution for a rectangular object. We can represent these temperature as an array T with 3 dimensions. Now let's see what are the operations that we can perform on array. MATLAB has two forms of arithmetic operations on array. One is array operation and other is matrix operation. Array operation in MATLAB is also called as element by element operation. Let us start with this array operation, that is element by element operation. Array addition and subtraction are the simplest form of operation that can be performed on any array. When two arrays have the same dimension, then their sum and differences has the same dimension and is obtained by adding or subtracting their corresponding elements. And this is simple and well known. So here is an example A, where A is a 2 cross 2 matrix, B is a 2 cross 2 matrix, and their addition is also a 2 cross 2 matrix. Array addition and subtraction are associative and commutative. So basically A plus B plus C is equal to A plus B plus C, and A plus B plus C is equal to B plus C plus A and C plus A plus B, that we are all aware of. Now let's talk about something interesting, that is element by element multiplication. When talking about multiplication, especially array multiplication in MATLAB, there are two forms. One is the linear algebraic form and the other is element by element multiplication, that is shown here. In this element by element form, each element of the array is multiplied by corresponding elements in the other array. Here 1 is multiplied by 1, 2 is multiplied by minus 2, and 3 is multiplied by 3, and 4 is multiplied by 4. Multiplication happens in this form. So how is this denoted in MATLAB? In MATLAB, this kind of multiplication is denoted as dot star operation. The major point to note here is this kind of multiplication is only defined when both arrays have the same dimension. For arrays with different dimension, this kind of element by element multiplication is not defined and it will throw an error when it is performed. Similar on the lines of element by element multiplication, we have element by element division. Here again it is denoted as dot division operator to represent the element by element division. Here too the arrays need to be of the same size and dimension for this operation to be defined. Example for the same is shown here. A is divided by a B, and the output we get is each element being divided by its corresponding element. So we have 1 divided by 1, minus 2 divided by 2, 3 divided by 3, and 4 divided by 4. So let us summarize all the element by element operation in MATLAB. These are the list of all the array operations that are there in MATLAB. We have addition, that is scalar array addition A plus B. Then we have subtraction, that is scalar array subtraction A minus B, where B is a scalar in both the cases. Then we have array addition, that is A plus B, where both A and B are matrix. Then we have array subtraction, that is A minus B, again where both A and B are matrix. Then we have dot star, that is array multiplication, that is A dot star B, that is an element by element multiplication. Similarly, we have right division, that is A dot division operator B, which is right division. And we have array left division with dot left operator, and we have array exponential, that is dot raised to power B. We will discuss about this left and right division a little later in the course. Let's see an example of how these vectors come into play. So here we have a problem statement. So suppose two divers start at the surface and establish the following coordinate system. X is to the west, Y is the north, and Z is down. Diver 1 swims 55 feet west, 36 feet north, and then dives 25 feet down. Diver 2 dives 15 feet, then swims east 20 feet, and then north 59 feet. So what we have to do is we have to find the distance between diver 1 and the starting point, and second we have to find how far in each direction must diver 1 swim to reach diver 2, and how far in a straight line must diver 1 swim to reach diver 2. First We know the position of diver 1, that is 55, 36 and 25. Let us store it in R. We also know the position of diver 2, that is minus 20, 59 and 15. Now let's store this in W. The negative sign here is because diver 2 moves to east, that is the negative of west. Now the first thing we need to find is the distance between diver 1 and the starting point. We know the formula of distance of a point as square root of x square plus y square plus z square. So similarly, using element by element operation, we got the distance as square root of sum r dot star r, that is nothing but each element being square and then added. So we get a value close to 70 feet. Now the second part says to find the location of diver 2 relative to diver 1. Let's say v gives the variable v gives this location. This can be easily found out by subtracting the location of diver 2 from diver 1. So we get v as w minus r, that is location of diver 2 minus the location of diver 1. So we got something like minus 75, 23 and minus 10. This means that to reach diver 2, diver 1 must swim 75 feet east, 23 feet north and 10 feet up along the coordinate direction. The straight line distance between them is denoted by distance 2, which is approximately 79 feet. Let's take an example on current and power dissipation in resistors. So the problem statement says that current I is passing through an electrical resistor having a voltage V across it as given by Ohm's law, that is I is equal to V by R, where R is the resistance. The power dissipated in the resistor is given by formula V square by R. The table here gives the data for the resistance and voltage for phi resistor. So we need to use this data to compute first the current in each resistor and the power dissipated in each resistor. Again, the first thing to do here is we will list out both the vectors for resistance and voltage. We store the resistance values in vector R and voltage value in vector V. Current is V by R. So here to get current, we will just do an element by element division as V dot division R and we will automatically get our current vector. Now to calculate power, which is V square by R, we will use element by element exponential and element by element division and we will get our power vector of each of the 5 elements. These are the power dissipated in each resistor in watts. Now let's talk about matrix operations. There are 3 variants of matrix multiplication. The first one is the multiplication of vectors, where one is a row vector and other is a column vector. Point to note is that in matrix multiplication, row vector with row vector or column vector with column vector multiplication is not defined. Then second, there is a multiplication of vector and a matrix. Shown here is a multiplication of 2 cross 2 matrix and a 2 element column vector, and it looks like something like shown here. Then third is the matrix by matrix multiplication. Shown here is a 3 cross 2 matrix multiplication with 2 cross 2 matrix. We get output as shown. So for the first element, the first row of the matrix is multiplied by first column and then added. For the second element in the first row of the output, the first row of the matrix is multiplied by second column of the second matrix and then added, and so on it goes. So this is how the matrix multiplication is performed. So you will find that this is the difference from element by element multiplication. I have generalized the formula for any matrix multiplication, and more about it can be read online or through algebra textbooks. Say we have a matrix A with dimension m cross p and B with dimension p cross q, and if C is the product of AB, then C has a dimension of m cross q and its elements are given by the formula as shown here. These kind of linear matrix algebra has application in electrical, they have application in product manufacturing, and basically these are like used everywhere. Now, polynomial operations using arrays. MATLAB has some convenient tools for working with polynomials. The poly of R function computes the coefficient of the polynomial whose roots are specified by the array R. The result is a row array that contains the polynomial's coefficient. For example, to find the polynomial whose roots are 1, 3 plus 5i and 3 minus 5i, we can write p as polynomial p as calling function poly and passing these roots as a vector as shown. We will get coefficients as 1, minus 7, 40 and 34, which means that our polynomial is x cube minus 7x square plus 40x minus 34. Polynomial addition and subtraction is simply an array addition and subtraction. To add or subtract the polynomials, we just add the arrays that describes their coefficient. If they are of different degree as shown here, that is f of x is 9x cube plus 5x square plus 3x plus 1, g of x is 6x square plus 3x plus 1, we will write f as 9531 and g as 0631. We add a 0 to g to tell the MATLAB that g is also a third degree polynomial but with initial coefficient as 0. After this, we can perform our polynomial addition, that is f plus g, and we can get our answer as 9, 11, 6 and 2. To multiply a polynomial by a scalar, we simply multiply the coefficient array by the scalar. Multiplication and division of polynomials are easily done with MATLAB. We use the convolution function to stand for convolve to multiply polynomials, and we use the deconvolve to perform the synthetic division. So we have convolve a comma b that computes the product of two polynomials described by the coefficient arrays a and b. Then we have q comma r as deconvolve of numerator comma denominator that computes the result of dividing a numerator polynomial whose coefficient is determined by the array and numerator, and we divide that by the denominator polynomial that is represented by coefficient array denominator. The quotient polynomial is given by the coefficient array q and the remainder polynomial is given by the coefficient array r. Then we have poly of r that computes the coefficient of the polynomial whose roots are specified by the vector r. The result is a row vector that contains the polynomial's coefficient arranged in descending order of power. Then we have polyval a comma x that evaluates a polynomial at specified values of its independent variable x, which can be basically a matrix or an array. The polynomial's coefficient of descending powers are stored in array a. The result has the size as same as that of x. Then we have roots of a that computes the root of a polynomial specified by the coefficient array a. The result is basically a column vector that contains the roots of the polynomial. Here I have shown an example to demonstrate both multiplication and division of polynomials. So we have a polynomial f of x as 9x cube minus 5x square plus 3x plus 7, and we have g of x as 6x square minus x plus 2. So the product of polynomials will obviously fx into gx will be like 9x cube minus 5x square plus 3x plus 7 into 6x square minus x plus 2, that is equivalent to 54x5 minus 39x4 plus 41x cube plus 29x square minus x plus 14. So we can divide these by f of x divided by g of x, and we'll get something like 1.5x minus 0.5833. Now to write a MATLAB code for the same, we will define a vector f with coefficients 9, minus 5, 3 and 7 for f of x. Then we will define a vector g for g of x with coefficients 6, minus 1 and 2. Using the function convol, we will pass f and g and we will get our product coefficient as 59, minus 39, 41, 29, minus 1 and 14. Similarly, we will divide using deconvol and we will get a quotient and a remainder. So quotient we get 1.5 and minus 0.5833 similarly as we got, and remainder we get minus 0.5833 and 8.1667. So this is how basic multiplication and division works for polynomials. Now let's talk about cell arrays. The cell array is an array in which each element is a bin or a cell which can contain an array. We can store different classes of arrays in a cell array, and we can group data sets that are related but have different dimension. We access cell arrays using the same indexing operation used with the ordinary arrays. There are ways to create cell arrays. One is by using cell function. The other one that I'm going to demonstrate is using either cell indexing or content indexing. To use cell indexing, we enclose in parentheses the cell subscripts, that is the index of the cell on the left side of the assignment statement, and use the standard array notation. And on the right side of the assignment operator, we enclose the cell contents in curly braces. This is demonstrated on box on bottom left. So we have A1, 1 and using the curly braces we pass the character array, that is Walden Pond, and then we have A1, 2 and using curly braces we pass the character array of June 30, 1997. Similarly, we have A2, 1 where we pass a numeric array in curly braces as 60, 72 and 65. Similarly, we again pass another numeric array in A2, 2. This is what is cell indexing. Now to use content indexing, we enclose in curly braces the cell subscripts, that is the index of the cell on the left side of the assignment operator, and on the right side we just put our content that needs to be stored as shown in the bottom box in bottom right. So here the difference is, for indexing like we did A1, 1, we are using a curly braces and then we are doing the indexing. So this directly gives us access to the content that is stored at the location 1, 1. So here when storing we do not need to use curly braces as we have already used that for indexing. Now let's talk about structure arrays in MATLAB. Structure arrays are composed of obviously structures. This class of arrays enables us to store dissimilar arrays together. The elements in structures are accessed using field names. This feature distinguishes them from cell arrays which are accessed during the standard array indexing operation. This is like shown here is like data, that is how the data is stored in a structured array. So basically we have a structure array of student where we have student 1 and student 2 and each of them has field names like name, SSN, email and test that stores the name, social security number, email and the test scores. Let's take an example to understand better how to create structures. So here in this example I am creating a structure similar to the one that was shown previously. So here we have field names of student name, social security number, email and test scores. So to create a structure and a field, we will start with the structure name, that is student, then dot notation followed by the field name, that is the name, and with assignment operator we will store the name. So we have student.name that is equal to John space Smith. So this student name is stored in the field name of the structure student. Similarly, we will create and populate other fields like SSN, email and test for social security number, email and test scores. When we just type the structure name like student here, it will show the field name and the content as shown. Now let's add another student to this structure. So again we take the structure name and then subscript it as number like 2, so making sure that it is the second entry, and we repeat the same procedure for field names of name, social security number, email and test scores. Here we will keep the field name exactly the same. Now we have created a structure as we saw in the previous slide. Listed here are some common functions that are used with the structure array. So we have field names of S that returns the field names associated with the structure S. Then we have is field followed by S comma field name. It returns if a field is the name of a field in the structure array S, and if it is not there then it returns a 0. Then we have is structure of S that returns 1 if the S is a structure and returns 0 if S is not a structure. Similarly, we have S equal to RM field S comma field name. It removes the field name from the structure array S. Then we have S equal to structure F1 comma V1 comma F2 comma V2 and so on. So basically this creates a structure array with fields F1, F2, F3 and so on, having the values V1, V2, V3 and so on. This concludes this video on numeric array, cell array and structure arrays in MATLAB. Here is what we have learned. We learned to create, access and edit numeric arrays. We learned how to perform array operation including addition, subtraction, multiplication, division and exponential. We also saw how to perform matrix operation including addition, subtraction, multiplication, division and exponential. And we saw how to create cell and structure arrays. So I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.